Comedy says, Here Queen.
Anatska says, Χαίρετε Spartans.
Achilles says, Χαίρετε Iei.
Pairat says, Χαίρετε. Priestis says, Χαίρετε Anatska. Adine says, Herida, salutes. Comedy says, Eurede. Asterisco asterisco salutes asterisco asterisco. Adine says, Here Queen.
Socrates salutes.
Anechka says, Nice to see you everyone. Smiley face, let's not waste the time and start Apella.
Adine nods.
Anechka says, Some unknown warriors around.
Apella says, Anechka Ceres is at the gate. Adine says, Yes, some new presences around here, we were wondering. Pairat says, Hieros Asteria. Apella says, Socrates Dionysus is at the gate.
Anechka says, I warmly welcome command and citizens to our weekly Apella. You may all be seated.
Comedy enters the room, looks around and approaches the benches. Adine heads toward her throne once given permission.
Anechka says, As the sun lowers, shadow stretches across the hall, and everyone has settled down on their seats, she starts her speech. Sons and daughters of Sparta, noble warriors and proud citizens of our ancient empire. The day begins its descent. The sky deepens, the light softens, and yet the warmth of the earth still lingers. Summer draws near, not just as a season, but as a sacred turning and a promise renewed by the gods. We stand here in unity, under the gaze of heaven, to welcome this time of strength and brightness. To Helios, whose golden chariot now lowers in the west, we give honor. May his fire bless our homes and keep our spirits high through the longest days.
Priestess says, "Are you worshipping?"
Anechka says, to Demeter, who stirs life in the soil, we offer thanks. May her gifts rise from the earth and feed both body and kin. To Apollo, bringer of harmony and seer of truth, we offer our voice. The approach of summer is a sacred time. A time to grow, to strengthen, to prepare. The songs of the earth remind us that we are never still. We are always rising, always becoming, always held in the favor of the divine. Let this Apella be opened with reverence and purpose. May our words carry wisdom and may our spirits remain united. Rejoice, Spartans. The summer comes slowly, and we are ready, smiley face. Hail Sparta! Hail Sparta! Haru! Haru!
Adine says, "Sparta blessed by the gods to protect us forever." Haro.
Comedy says, Aro. Aro.
Adine says, "Sparta blessed by the gods to protect us forever." Haro.
Anechka says, to begin our Apella meeting, I invite a harp player to grace us with their music.
Comedy raises her hand.
Anechka says, yes please dear.
Comedy says, the new one?
Anechka says, yes. We like the new one.
Combi takes a deep breath and slides her fingers over the arpeggios like a silent dance on its strings.
Anechka says, her eyes sparkled with admiration.
Adine says, whoever gave us that instrument made a good choice. She whispers as she strains her ear to the good melody wafting through the air.
Combi feels each note, each chord, creating a melodic narrative that transports her to another world. Combi smiles. Comedy is proud to have the honor of playing this dream instrument, with its strings shining like stars and its sound flowing like a gentle river. Comedy wishes her melody to delight everyone here present. Comedy wonders if she plays other melody.
Anechka says, listening to the music, she couldn't help but smile.
Jesto it cveti.
Combi feels herself transported to another dimension, with a magic in her fingers that makes it vibrate with a sweet melody.
Anechka says, asterisk Apella USE asterisk.
Adine claps hands.
Anechka says, as the performance concludes, she gives Ephor a grateful nod. Your music was truly enchanting, Mineya.
Priestess says, "Are you partying?"
Comedy thanks with a smile.
Anechka says, we are grateful. You may now return to your seat.
Comedy says, Eurede. Asterisco asterisco salutes asterisco asterisco.
Anechka salutes. Who among you is today responsible of documenting our proceedings?
Adine accompanies Ephor's return to her seat with a light clapping of her hands, while the sweet notes still ring in her mind. Adine raises hand. My hand would be honored to sign the scrolls of Her Majesty.
Anechka says, excellent, thank you, Ambassador. I now summon Hieros Socrates and Lamy to lead the Apella opening prayers.
Socrates pours libations of honey-sweet wine from his chalice for the gods. To Zeus. Much honored Zeus, indestructible Zeus, we lay before you this redeeming testimony and this prayer. O King, you have brought to light divine works, an earth, goddess and mother, the hills swept by the shrill winds, the sea, the host of stars marshaled by the sky.
Priestess says, "Are you worshipping?"
Anechka says, she bows her head in gratitude as the prayers unfold.
Socrates says, Cronian Zeus, whose scepter is the thunderbolt, strong-spirited, father of all, beginning and end of all, earth-shaker, increaser and purifier, indeed all-shaker, god of thunder and lightning, Zeus the planter. Hear me, O many-faced one, and grant me unblemished health, divine peace, and riches and glory without blame. Socrates pours libations of honey-sweet wine for the gods from his chalice. I now call on Priestess Lamy to say opening Apella prayers.
Priestess shouts, "Hestia, you who tend the holy house of the Lord Apollo, the far shooter at goodly Pytho, with soft oil dripping ever from your locks, come now into this house, come, having one mind with Zeus the all-wise, draw near, and withal bestow grace upon my song. We offer you a libation of sweet honeyed wine. Hail Almighty Zeus the Thunderer, hail all the gods of Olympus. We offer you a libation of sweet honeyed wine. May the gods bless all in attendance of these prayers."
Socrates pours libations of honey-sweet wine from his chalice for the gods. Socrates salutes.
Anechka salutes. Thank you for the prayers, Hieros and Lami.
Major Devotion resonate in the Herz of Sparta.
Please, take your seats with our sincere appreciation. I summon Ambassador Asteria to deliver both the army and management reports.
Adine does a small nod with her head and rises from her throne to deliver her reports. Herida salutes.
Anechka salutes.
Adine says, "First, I must inform you about the progress of our population and the general condition of the city, my queen.
Anechka says, nods and awaits the report.
Adine says, after a quick glance and having made sure the queen allowed her, she resumes her speech. Hermes has let no strangers into our city, which is home to the same number of inhabitants as last time. It remains stable under your rule, O Queen. That is all about our population. Now the time has come to inform this honorable assembly about what concerns our relations with other people, inside and outside the Hellas.
Anechka says, nods. Please continue, sister.
AD nods and carries on. As promised in your presence, I resumed my travels and am here tonight to report what my eyes have seen and my ears have heard that may be of interest to the Empire. My steps led me to a distant valley far outside our homeland, a wild and inhospitable place where a village of nomadic warriors had sprung up, whose guest I was months ago. They call themselves by the name of Gokturk. It is still unknown to me what that barbaric name means, O Queen, she says with embarrassment, struggling to pronounce it as correctly as possible.
Anechka says, rests her hands lightly on the arms of her throne, her expression serene yet shadowed by the weight of leadership. The flicker of the brazier flames dance in her eyes as she listens, each word from Asteria deepening the furrow between her brows. She draws a quiet breath, the silence of responsibility loud in her ears. Mutters under her breath, barely audible, a phrase only the most observant might catch: the crown is heavier when peace teeters on the blade of diplomacy. She then sits upright once more, regal and unwavering, offering Asteria a firm nod to continue.
Arches abrauvis mild intrige, fingers tapping once against the armrest, your vigilance honos us, sister. Speak un.
Adine says, "Your words bear a meaning with which it is not possible to disagree, O Queen," she replies, but in her gaze lurks the uneasiness of one who brings unexpected news. Adine draws a deep sigh, then says, "I had gone there full of expectation, but great was my surprise to find, soon after my arrival, that the entire village had disappeared like morning mist. In that valley that once resounded with the neighing of their horses and their mighty voices, now only silence reigned. Not a tent, not a hearth, not a trace of the proud warriors who once called that land home," she says, still showing disbelief and bewilderment in her gaze.
Anechka says, narrows her eyes slightly, voice low. Vanished? This bodes ill. She leans forward, the weight of concern settling in her gaze.
Adine lets out a small sigh and a nod of her head. "Completely, O Queen," and there were no signs of battles or natural disasters, or anything that could explain. It is as if a whirlwind has passed over that land, erasing everything that was there until the day before.
Anejka says, her fingers tightening slightly on the armrest, said no trace. No cause. Voice trails into a whisper before stating, this mystery reeks of sorcery, or something worse, we must not ignore it, sister.
Adine says, all we can do is speculate, O Queen. Perhaps an attack by a rival tribe that made them flee, perhaps the search for more fertile pastures. Whether it is evil sorcery or a divine intervention, only the gods have the answer. Or maybe some wise seer. Priestess says, are you worshipping? Adine says, but certainly my eyes can't see that far. She adds a moment later, just to underline that she has no idea what happened. Priestess says, are you discussing something?
Anejka says, then let the gods speak, and the seers be summoned. Her tone is calm, but steel lies beneath it, we will not stand blind in shadow. Adds after a moment of contemplation, our oracle has returned to Delphi, we should send an emissary to seek her counsel.
Adine nods and says she may have the answer we are looking for, and we may consider to send messengers there, with a rich offering and seek counsel. But all I can say about it is that it was my intention to make contact with them, but the gods have decided otherwise.
Anechka says, her voice thoughtful as she speaks, the God's will is often beyond our grasp, but we must honor it. Prepare the messengers and offerings. Please, sister, see this done.
Adine adds a moment after, however, I do not consider it a useless journey, for it has caused me to reflect on the fragility of earthly kingdoms and the fact that, although it is wise to seek agreements and alliances, it is even more necessary to rely on our own strength and nothing else. What exists today could collapse tomorrow, and the hopes we place in others vanish, like the early morning fog.
Anechka says, wise words, sister. Our strength must be the foundation, alliances our shield, not a sword.
Adine says, exactly, my queen. But we can still ask the gods to give us an answer, through the oracle's words if you so wish. Adine, as her last words reach her ear, she nods and says, I will prepare an expedition to Delphi then, and let's hope we will find there an answer to this mystery.
Anechka says, All right then, she smiles slightly. Do you have anything else to report, Ambassador?
Adine says, Not for tonight, my queen. That is all.
Anechka says, Ambassador, your reports are greatly appreciated. You have our sincere thanks for your valuable contributions.
Adine says, Herida, salutes.
Anechka salutes. After a brief moment of contemplation, her eyes briefly tracing the scroll in her hand, she raises her gaze to address the Apella once more. In a tone that blends command with grace, she declares, I summon Ephor Mineya to deliver council reports.
Comedy stands up and steps forward to present her reports. Eurede. Asterisco asterisco salutes asterisco asterisco.
Aneka salutes.
Comedy holds the still closed scroll in her hand and starts saying. Comedy is glad that the queen was able to be present today, as last time circumstances beyond her control did not allow it. Comedy takes her scroll, grabs it with both hands and starts to read it as she unrolls it.
Anechka says, well, sometimes state matters don't let me attend. But I am always relying on our dear ambassador.
Adine smiles.
Comedy says, she makes her job perfectly, smiles.
Anechka says, please continue your reports, dear.
Comedy goes on.
Priestess says, are you discussing something?
Comedy reads that last Wednesday 28th took place the Spartan belly dance by Hieros Socrates, that he reported the following. We spent 2 hours belly dancing in costume to Greek, Turkish, and Arabic tunes provided by DJ Socrates Dionysus after an introduction of dance music by Queen Anechka. Thanks to Queen Anechka, General Luke, Ambassador Asteria, and Ephor Mineya for joining the attendees. DJ Socrates Dionysus.
Anechka says, *Apella.
Adine claps hands.
Comedy says, once again as every Sunday, the muses again enveloped Sparta with the art of rhyme that fills the poet's mouth with emotion and captivates the listener. Bard's gathering took place, which was so well attended and all enjoyed with poems selection with 9 guests and readers, hosting by Jolie and Saber.
Anechka says, *Apella.
Adine claps hands.
Comedy mentions that this same day, the training took place under the guidance of Councilor Alelangel, who is not here at the moment. Report was sent, and if she is allowed, she can read it herself on behalf of the counselor.
Priestess says, are you discussing something?
Anechka says, *Apella. Yes, please read it.
Adine claps hands.
Comedy thanks for the permission granted and reads. Report released by Councilor Eolangel on Sunday June on subject combat training. We had a hard hour of training with the participation of Ambassador Asteria, improving our versus 1 skills. Thanks for her participation in our first Sunday combat training.
Anechka says, wonderful. Army trainings are important.
Hail Sparta! Hail Sparta!
Haru. Haru.
Comedy has her best intention to attend it, but she has something other to attend in that moment.
Adine says, Sparta blessed by the gods to protect us forever. Haro.
Comedy says, Aro. Aro.
Adine says, Oh, how our blows resounded in the arena, and the clanging of the blades on the shields, she says, sighing.
Comedy goes on saying, Comedy has no more to report and will now give a reminder of the week's events.
Anechka says, nods.
Comedy says, on Thursday, we will belly dance in the agora with Ephor Mineya. Bring your silks or your favorite garments and she will make you move your hips with the sinuous sways that with her music will make you dance.
Anechka says, Apella USE.
Comedy says, this time she, with her small workshop of learning and dancing, will share with you the second part of the topic she talked about last time.
Adine claps hands.
Comedy says, that day it was about the toys and games of the ancient Greek children and now it is the turn of the older ones.
Anechka says, oh again workshop.
Comedy says, she will illustrate it with pictures to make it more enjoyable. She hopes you will enjoy it as she thinks this little workshop was well received last time.
Anechka says, can't miss it then.
Comedy smiles and goes on. On Sunday, once again the muses will once again envelop Sparta with the art of rhyme that fills the poet's mouth with emotion and captivates the listener. As always, this bards gathering will be hosted by Esaber. Comedy encourages everyone to attend these events and bring your friends and family who are sure to love it. Comedy has nothing more to add and closes her scroll.
Anechka says, taps her hand on the throne arm.
Comedy says, moment, my secretary says me something in my ear. On Friday we will enjoy again with the mythology lessons led by our queen.
Anechka says, smiles.
Comedy says, sure will be other interesting master class.
Anechka says, presence mandatory.
Adine tilts her head slyly, expecting to hear something else.
Comedy says, now no more tad.
Anechka says, asterisk Apella USC asterisk.
Adine says, we are looking forward to hear tales of our gods and ancestors, O Queen. Adine claps hands.
Anechka says, smiles at Ambassador remark then nods in acknowledgement at Ephor. Thank you for keeping us informed, she conveys with genuine appreciation. You are excused, please take your seat.
Comedy smiles and hopes to have the chance to join.
Anechka salutes.
Comedy says, Eurede. Asterisco asterisco salutes asterisco asterisco.
Anechka says, should there be anyone here today with a yearning to speak in this gathered Apella, we invite you to share your thoughts now. Citizens, your opinions and concerns are not just welcomed but cherished. Please step forward if you wish to share your thoughts with us. Apella members have the opportunity to speak if desired.
Adine says, thinks for a few moments and then stands up. There is something, O Queen. Herida salutes.
Anechka says, nods. Go on, sister.
Adine says, it is about your lesson, O Queen.
Anechka says, lifts a brow.
Adine says, "It would be my wish to hear something about lesser known but not less important creatures that populate our myths, and whose names are often spoken with awe and fear. I mean creatures like lamias or impuzas."
Anechka says, "I am halfway with preparing for the lessons." The subject will be Women of Power and Prophecy, from Circe to Cassandra.
Adine says, "That is very interesting, but I hope you will keep in consideration also my request for future lessons."
Anechka says, "But I can note down the creatures you mention and give some informations about them as well."
Adine smiles. "I would appreciate it very much." That was all.
Anechka says, "Thank you for your input then." You may return to your seat.
Adine says, "Thank you for listening." Herida salutes.
Anechka salutes. At the conclusion of today's Apella meeting, I shall recite words that were spoken in days past. Honor the peace of Hestia, for a steady flame at home is the foundation of all your endeavors. Taking a moment to gather her thoughts, she turns her gaze towards Hieros. I kindly ask Hieros Socrates to offer the closing prayers for this Apella.
Socrates pours further libations of honey-sweet wine from his chalice for the gods. To Poseidon. Hearken, dark-maned Poseidon, holder of the earth, equestrian, carved in bronze is the trident in your hand, and you dwell in the foundations of the full-bosomed sea. Deep-roaring ruler of the sea and shaker of the earth, your blossoms are waves, O gracious one, as you urge horses and chariot on, rushing on the sea and splashing through the rippling brine. To your lot fell the third portion, the unfathomable sea, and you delight in waves and in their wild dwellers, O spirit of the deep. Save the foundations of the earth and ships moving at full tilt, and bring peace, health, and blameless prosperity. Socrates pours libations of honey-sweet wine from his chalice for Poseidon. I now call on Priestess Lamy to say closing Apella prayers.
Priestess shouts, I will sing of Zeus, chiefest among the gods and greatest, all-seeing the Lord of all, the fulfiller who whispers words of wisdom to Themis as she sits leaning towards him. Be gracious, all-seeing son of Cronos, most excellent and great. We offer you a libation of sweet honeyed wine. May Zeus and the gods bless this city, its king, its princess regent, its royals, and all of its citizens. We offer you a libation of sweet honeyed wine. May the gods bless all who attended these prayers.
Socrates pours libations of honey-sweet wine from his chalice for the gods.
Priestess says, Are you worshipping?
Socrates salutes.
Anechka says, thank you for your prayers Hieros and Lambes.
Please accompany Emil back to my villa Spartans.
I thank you everyone who attended today Apella.
Adine nods and stands at once. I wish I had my weapons with me as I used to do, O Queen.
Anechka says, waits on Ephor to gather her scrolls. Let's go.
Apella says, Anechka Ceres is at the gate.
Beirat says, Hello.
Priestess says, hello Socrates.
Anechka says, the city looks beautiful.
Comedy says, always.
Adine says, especially when Helios retires and gives way to night.
Anechka says, wonders what is happening to Counselor.
Priestess says, an assembly is taking place. Religious worship or ritual activity is occurring. People are talking about consumption of food and drink. Hello Adine.
Anechka says, those days her villa looks quite empty. And full of dirt outside. Shrugs.
Adine says, I hope I didn't make her tired after we polished our skills in the arena.
Anechka says, ha 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 sis, you can be restless at times, it's true.
Adine smiles.
Anechka says, turns her face to the stars and walks further.
Adine says, as a Spartan should, my queen.
Achilles says, our queen, and, in the end, a Spartan's true strength is the warrior next to him. So give respect and honor to him, and it will be returned to you. First, you fight with your head. Hieros Socrates Dionysos. 10 soldiers wisely led will beat 100 without a head.
Pairat says, Hieros Socrates.
Anechka says, "Thank you for escorting me back home, Spartans. I wish you peaceful night." See you on the belly dance workshop.
Priestess says, "Are you discussing something?"
Socrates says, "Good night, queen."
Comedy says, "Today many around, it is good you reach your home safe."
Edine says, "Have a good rest, queen."
Anechka salutes.
Adine says, "Herida," salutes.
Socrates salutes.
Comedy says, Eurede. Asterisco asterisco salutes asterisco asterisco.
Adine says, "I wish you good night, Spartans. Have a safe journey back to your homes." Herida salutes.
Comedy says, I wish you the same. Eurede. Asterisco asterisco salutes asterisco asterisco.
Adine says, "Thank you."
Socrates salutes.
Comedy says, good night Socrates and Lambis.
Socrates says, "Good night."
Comedy says, I take my way to home.